Hello. I remember early in my divorce when my emotions were all over the place. And I know just like some of you all, you know, I was mad one day, happy the next, depressed the next, confused the next. And it wasn't until I began to really self reflect that I became more self aware. Now, it took me, it seems like forever to get to a sane space to where I could just sit down and take in the emotions that I was feeling. You know how it is when we just go about our day. Sometimes we act like as if nothing has happened. And then, of course, the world goes on, even when we deal with trauma in our lives. But it was so important for me to just sit down and to sit in those emotions that I was feeling. And I just came to a place of acceptance of my new life. So I must tell you, I have not gotten everything right post divorce. Lord knows I haven't. But I'm happy to say that I'm a lot more aware of my emotions, my triggers, and my behaviors, which helps me, make better decisions and interact with my ex in a much healthier way. And that is one reason why I love sharing my journey with you all, because I know if I can do it, so can you. And I also know that, you're not alone. And just because things aren't good now, that doesn't mean it can't be better. And even when things are good, they can be even better. So, self awareness is crucial in co parenting because that's what I came to the realization of having just that time that I decided just to stop and not be caught up in all this cycle and these balls of emotions that I had all the time. And it is so important for helping us to have that healthy relationship and effective communication for and with our co-parent. Um, and I know I'm going to specifically be talking about co-parenting today, but this information can really help anyone on their life's journey in building and maintaining healthy relationships. So, you know how I am. I love definitions, and I also like to set a baseline to where we're going to make sure that we're on the same page. So, what is self awareness? So, I looked up the definition and I found that self awareness refers to the ability to consciously preserve, understand, and recognize one's own thoughts, emotions, behaviors, strengths, weaknesses, and motivations. It involves being attuned to one's internal experiences, including beliefs, values, and attitudes, as well as how these aspects influence interactions with others and shapes our life's choices. Now that is huge. That is, ooh, that is something else. So in essence, self-awareness, it involves having insight into oneself, both on the surface level, so we're actually aware of our immediate thoughts and feelings, and also on a deeper level, where we understand the underlying patterns, triggers, and motivations. Now, this self-understanding, it enables us to make informed decisions. It helps us to regulate our emotions so we're not all over the place. Like I mentioned, I just had this ball of emotion. I was in a cycle of emotions, up and down, roller coaster. And it actually helps us to manage interpersonal relationships effectively. Remember, I told you this is not just about our. We can apply this to every relationship, so we can have a healthy relationship. But we're specifically talking about co-parenting. And one great thing about self-awareness, it helps us to pursue personal growth and development because we're always wanting, we know exactly where we are in each moment. And it just pretty much wants, it pushes us to grow and to learn more. So, in the context of co parenting, it refers to the ability of one or both parents recognizing and understanding their thoughts, opinions, feelings, and behaviors, but it's within the co parenting relationship. It involves being aware of how those actions, how your own actions impact the relationship, your communication style, and also emotional responses and how they impact the co-parenting dynamic as a whole. And of course, all of this impacts the well-being of our child that's involved. So as you can see, self-awareness is huge in co-parenting. And after talking with, or I should say, talking about the different parenting styles, it really opens you up to um, really being more self-aware. You know, if you're really serious about wanting to know what your parenting style is, what the other co-parenting or what the other co-parents co-parenting, the other co-parent parenting style or yes, parenting style is, it will help you to be more self-aware. So I want to talk about three things um, that can really help us in our self awareness journey. Now, in these, with these three things, I also want to give you some actions and ways that you can actually execute these things because this is a mindset. This is a new way of co parenting. And not many people discuss this as it relates to co parenting, but this is something that is really a passion of mine. So I want to give you all the tools that you possibly can use in order to be successful in your co-parenting journey. And these things, they can apply to one co-parent, um, both co-parents. I know there's times where there's only one parent in the relationship that is really serious about their growth, serious about wanting things to be better, or maybe it appears that way. But all the tools that I share, it really can be used individually because it will really help you come to more of a place of peace and understanding within yourself. It will help you to understand you can only control the things that you can control, and you just have to do your part. Okay. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is understanding your triggers and emotions. Now, this one can be huge, or this one is huge. Well, all of these are huge. I'm probably going to say all of them are huge anyway, but this one is huge because we all have triggers and emotions, you know, post breakup, post divorce, because we are coming to terms with what was to what is. And then we're trying to get through all of the emotions that are associated with it. And, you know, understanding our triggers and emotions is important because recognizing those triggers and understanding our emotional responses is really crucial because it allows us to respond to situations rather than interact impulsively. And when we don't have those emotions regulated, that's exactly what happens. You know, we will act impulsively. Um, and when we're co-parenting, emotions they really do run high, especially in the beginning, because our emotions are all over the place. And if we do not come to a place of regulation, they will grow, they will get worse, And in turn, the relationship won't get better. So when we're aware of these triggers, they can really help us to prevent conflicts. Not saying that we won't have any conflicts, but when we understand those triggers, it'll help us to be more aware of those triggers to avoid the potential conflicts that would possibly be if we did not have that self-awareness. And it also promotes more effective communication because we're able to really effectively communicate how we're feeling, what we're seeing, and we're in a healthier place. Now, what I want you to do with this particular um, understanding or with this particular point, as far as understanding your triggers and emotions, is I want you to keep a journal to track your emotional responses. Now, having a healthy relationship is going to take work. Anything that's worth it is going to take work. It's going to take some initiative. It's going to take some intention. Okay. So I want you to keep a journal to track your emotional responses, your triggers, and your patterns in various, co-parenting situations. And I want you to take the time and reflect on those things that you've written down in your journal, because this is going to really help you to identify those patterns and gain insight into those triggers and certain emotions. Because when you, especially if you're visual, it's really crucial to write those things down, um, because you can go back and you can say, okay, this happened before. Okay, how did I handle this? And then you can also see your growth as well in the process. Um, and then I want you to regularly review your journal entries, um, because it can also help you to identify reoccurring triggers, which the reflection can you can actually, it'll help you to anticipate situations that might come up that might lead to conflict, and it'll help you to prepare accordingly. Just like I mentioned before, it'll really help in your growth. Now, you might be saying to yourself, now, Tiffany, um, it's easier said than done. Yeah, I can write these things down. I can, keep up with my emotional responses, my triggers and my patterns, and I can self reflect. But what else can I really do to help myself? Now, I would definitely recommend, now, this is the way you can execute it. Okay. And because this is something that's really helped me. And I don't know if you've ever practiced mindfulness and affirmations, but it is crucial to your development, to your co-parenting relationship. And when you incorporate these mindfulness techniques, such as deep breathing, meditation, visualization, when you do those on a daily basis, this will help you to stay grounded, and it will help you manage strong emotions in the moment during your co-parenting interactions. One thing that I've learned is, it's taken a while for me to get where I am. So it's going to take me a while to get to where I need to be. So in order to get where I need to be, I have to do things that might be out of the ordinary, but I need to do things that's going to move me forward and that's going to help me prepare for future situations. And mindfulness is definitely one of them. And I strongly encourage that. And one other thing I want you to do to execute this is pause before you respond. And I know you've probably heard me say, I've had to take a step back. And that's what this is. We're taking a step back when we're faced with triggering situations with our co parent. We're going to take a moment to pause and assess our emotions before we respond. And this pause, it really allows us to choose a thoughtful, a more appropriate, less defensive, constructive response rather than, reacting impulsively. And I'm saying impulsive, that's a nice word from, just basically acting like we really don't need to be acting. Because when we act, you got to be honest. When we act in a negative way, that's exactly what we're going to get back in return. We can't expect to get back positivity when we react in a negative way. So that was understanding your triggers and emotions. And these are the points that I'm talking about as it relates to self awareness. I have three of them. So the second one is recognizing your co-parenting style and preferences. There goes that co-parenting style again. Remember when we talked about the different styles last time? So if you have not gone back or if you have not listened to that live, I strongly encourage you to listen to that live because it really gives you some insights. I showed you a visual of the different parenting styles and everything to kind of help you identify yourself and also to help you to identify the other co-parent. And it's huge. Just like I said, all of these are huge. I'm always going to say this is huge. But everything is so important when it comes to getting better for ourselves and getting better for our child. Don't you agree? Yeah, I think so. So, why is recognizing our co parenting style and preferences important? Well, as well as those of our co parent, not just us, because it actually promotes better communication and cooperation. It allows us to tailor our approach to our co-parent when we're interacting with them. And in turn, it helps us to be more effective in cooperation with them. And I know sometimes thinking about when you're in a certain space, when you're not in the best healthy space, you will think to yourself when I say words like cooperation or collaboration, um, it probably does give a why would I want to do that type of feeling. So I would want to encourage you if you do feel a little pushback when I talk about certain things as relates to co-parenting and trying to work with your co-parent. I want you to not judge yourself, but I want you to think to yourself, why am I feeling that way? Why is that come across as a negative thing to me as it relates to my co-parent? Um, and I just kind of want you to just be curious about that and just really think about it and journal how you're feeling and kind of dig deep into those feelings. And by all means, if you need to make an appointment with me to discuss and I can walk you through that, you can do that as well. So, um, the action for recognizing your co parenting style and your preference. Take a personality assessment. Find out what type of personality you have. There's a Myers and Briggs type indicator that you can take. I've taken the Enneagram. There's the DISC assessment. There's all kinds of different um, personality assessments that are out there, and it can really help you to understand your co-parenting style and your preference and your strengths. And it'll also help you to understand your co-parenting style, preferences, and strengths better too. And then what I want you to do, I want you to seek feedback from friends and family members that are trusted. Now, I remember when I took the Enneagram. If you've never read that book or taken the Enneagram, it is It is amazing because I was able to see everybody in my life, what type they were, and it was so beautiful how I was able to relate to them better. I was really able to relate to them much better because I knew exactly where they were coming from. And um, when you do take these personality assessments, talk to your family and friends about it. Talk to those that are trusted that'll give you some honest feedback about what you found out. If you can't, if you don't have someone trusted that you can talk to, feel free to definitely call me, and we can go over your personality assessment, what you've actually found out about yourself, and then we can discuss whatever um, emotions that might be associated with what you found out, and because it really helps to improve your co-parenting behavior and any areas of improvement that you might need to make as well. So the execution of recognizing your co-parenting style. So we're going to use this knowledge to adapt to your communication style better and to align it with your co-parenting preferences. So for example, if you prefer written communication, but your co-parent, they prefer face-to-face conversations, it's okay to make an effort to to accommodate that preference just for more effective communication. I mean, that's all it is. We want to have more effective communication. And remember, because all of this is for our kids. And a lot of times, I mean, I know when me and my ex are communicating, because we communicate a lot via text, but like really the important things that I really want to talk about, I call, or we might talk in person, because text just isn't going to get it. Not when it comes to our kids. I know that's the world we live in, as a tech in the text world, but that's not useful for everything. Quick things um, that you want to regularly keep the parent involved in, the different activities or accomplishments, or things that person might need to know about the child, or whatever the case might be. That's good for text. But when you're discussing something that is an issue or concern, something that's going on with the child, um, you really need to have that face to face or that phone call to them. So, also, the way to execute this one is to practice empathy. We got to put ourselves in the other co-parent shoes, and we got to try to understand their perspective, even if we disagree. Because I mean, we're gonna disagree because we disagree when we're in a relationship with them, when we're married to them. So disagreements are gonna happen, but it's much easier. And this is a more healthy place. Remember, we're working on healthy. And when we're in a more healthy space and we're more self-aware, we can be more empathetic, because empathy, it fosters compassion and mutual respect, and it lays the foundation for a healthier co-parenting relationship. And a lot of these things, especially if we're not used to doing it, it's going to take some time to get used to doing it. And just the consistency of all of this, it matters. Consistency is the key to the breakthrough. It really is. So the last one I want to talk about is acknowledging your contribution to conflict and cooperation. Now, this one, I'm not going to say huge, but this one, um, it has been a challenge for me, and something that, because no one likes to admit when they're wrong, right? But it's it's so much easier when we do, when we're more in tune with our behaviors. and in our emotions and how we react. So, you know, this one is definitely important because we're taking responsibility for our role in conflicts and we're actively working towards resolution, which promotes accountability and it fosters cooperation in our co parenting dynamic. It actually helps us to understand our co parent's perspective, even if we disagree, because we are going to disagree. Because most time when we're having conflict, it's because of a disagreement, but we can't understand their perspective. And it also shifts the focus from blame to problem solving. So we can find common ground and compromise, which ultimately benefits the well being of our child. And a lot of times when we have conflict, we'll get off on a tangent that's totally unrelated to the issue at hand. And one thing that we can do, or I should say, one thing that self awareness really helps when we acknowledge our contribution to conflict, it helps us to just stay focused. It helps us to stay focused on what's actually going on. And if the other co parent is not staying focused, it helps us to redirect them back to the problem at hand. And if they don't want to be redirected, then that's where we put our boundaries in place and we say, I see that this is best for us to discuss this later. So I'm going to call you tomorrow or whatever time, you feel like it's needed. And you set up a time for you to follow up on that conversation. But when you are working towards healthy, you will set those boundaries as well. So your action item for this one, it is reflecting on past conflicts. And so just take the time because I know so we have a lot of past conflicts, don't we? It seems like we remember the conflicts more than we remember the good times in past relationships. But we're going to take time to reflect on those, and we're going to consider, what is it that I did? What was my contribution to them? And you're going to ask yourself, how could I have handled that situation differently? And what steps can I take to prevent something like this happening in the future? It's like, And then it really, I want you to, when it comes to this one as well, look at it from a place of curiosity, not a place of judgment. Because we're trying to move forward. We're trying to move in a more healthy space. And just like any of these other points that I mentioned, if you need support, reach out to me and I'll provide you with that guidance that you need to get through this, because we're all on this journey together. If you have a therapist that you can talk to, sometimes things are much deeper than, especially after we start reflecting. Sometimes we have to do some really deep work, especially if things have happened in our childhood that's impacting our current situation. But specifically, anybody who specializes, in relationships. And of course, me being the co-parenting coach, I can assist you with um, anything in relates to your co-parenting relationship and guide you in that way, because we can provide some really valuable strategies for the conflict resolution to help you to develop more of an effective communication style as well. So you're asking me, I know you are. You gave me executions to the other one. What's the execution for this one? we're going to practice active listening. Because, of course, with conflict, communication is not strong. It's conflict is is something else, and more than likely, one or both people are not listening. So when we are actively listening, we're engaging in co-parenting discussions. We're fully focusing on what the co-parent's perspective is without interrupting or jumping to conclusions. We're not making assumptions because we're actually engaged in the discussion. We're engaged in focusing on what it is that that they're trying to tell us. And I must admit, us women, we find it harder to do this because we talk. We want to get our point across. We're emotional. You know how we are. But I think we have to practice active listening much more than, and then especially if our ex has been used to us always um, speaking over them or interrupting them on a regular basis. For us to not do that is, I'm sure it's going to be a shock for the first time. I know it's going to be a shock. They're probably going to be thinking that, okay, she is not listening to me. She's ignoring me, or something else is going on. But the more you do that, consistency, and you're able to repeat back, because you're going like, are you listening to me? You're gonna be like, yeah. You're gonna actually repeat back what you've heard, so you can ensure that you understand, and you're gonna demonstrate empathy. Yep, you are. Yep. And another way that you're going to execute this is to collaborate on solutions. See, we're moving forward. We are solution driven. We are resolution oriented. So instead of focusing on assigning blame, cooperate with your co parent to find solutions that benefit everyone involved, especially the child, because this is what it's all about. It's the child. We wouldn't even be communicating with our ex if it wasn't for our child, right? For the most part. So we have to maintain an open and constructive dialogue, focusing on common goals and mutual interest. And I mean, I tell you, self awareness and co parenting. I mean, you see how huge it is and how it is so essential for effective communication and minimizing conflict, and how much it can actually promote a healthier co-parenting dynamic, and how, just imagine how much more our child can thrive in this type of environment. Yeah, because we're actually approaching our co-parenting with mindfulness, with empathy, and a commitment to personal growth and collaboration, because we're attuned to our emotions, we're attuned to our behaviors, we're attuned to triggers, we're attuned to motivations, anything that could help us or hinder us in our co parenting relationship to be the best parent that we can be for our child. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this session today. I know I did, just preparing for it. And I always, always trust God before I, I think about what I'm going to talk about. And I probably think about it and meditate on it for at least a week or so. just to make sure that I'm hearing from God as it relates to what's needed. So I know this is something that I needed to continue to focus on because this is a journey of life. You know, healing is a journey, our health is a journey, and we're all in this together in this co parenting journey. So until next time, bye bye.